Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a huge, mainstream superhero story and completely reframing it. We're not going to focus on the web-slinging action or the big CGI battles. Instead, we're diving into a profound, deeply relatable psychological narrative hiding right in plain sight, the mind of Peter Parker. We all saw the heartbreaking ending of Spider-Man No Way Home, right? I mean, it completely stunned audiences. But what if losing everyone actually wasn't his greatest tragedy? What if the true horror of that ending wasn't just the isolation, but the reality of forgetting who Peter Parker even is?
Section 1. The Ultimate Selfless Sacrifice. Think back to that moment when Peter asked Doctor Strange to cast the final spell. He's literally asking to be erased from the memories of absolutely everyone he loves. MJ, Ned, Happy. The devastation here goes way beyond just physical loss. For the first time in his life, he doesn't just lose his people. He loses proof that he ever mattered. All evidence of his existence is wiped clean. So when every trace of you vanishes from the minds of those who knew you best, what does that kind of absolute isolation actually do to a human mind?
Section 2. Enduring cumulative trauma. To really grasp the severity of this isolation, we have to look at the incredibly fragile psychological state Peter is already in before that spell is even cast. He's suffering from what's known as cumulative trauma. This isn't just having a really bad day or facing one single tragedy. It's experiencing one devastating event after another so fast that the brain literally stops believing safety even exists. It fundamentally rewrites how a person thinks, how they trust, and how they view themselves.
If we trace his timeline, his brain has taken just a relentless beating. I mean, in childhood, his parents disappear. Then in his teen years, Uncle Ben is murdered right in his arms. Move to young adulthood, and his mentor Tony Stark sacrifices himself. And finally, present day, his absolute rock, Aunt May, dies right in front of him. With every single loss, his reality is brutally rewritten. He barely has a second to process one grief before the next one tears his world apart all over again.
And it brings us to this incredibly heavy realization. For Peter, pain isn't an interruption anymore. It's normal. Sure, most superheroes experience trauma, but Peter Parker literally lives inside it. It's his baseline. Section 3. The Void of Identity Loss.
Okay, so on top of all that compounding trauma, Peter is hit with a psychological reality that is arguably even more terrifying: identity loss. This is the complete destruction of a person's sense of self, which happens when the external evidence of your existence is completely erased. This is so devastating because our memories aren't just an internal scrapbook. They're the literal, tangible evidence that we exist in the world.
Think about how we build our own identities from the ground up. Our friends remind us who we are through shared jokes. Our family gives us a shared history to stand on. Our closest relationships reflect our personality back to us. Without these external markers, you essentially become a ghost haunting your own life.
It's literally like attending your own funeral. You are totally separated from the meaningful connections you've built, even though you're still physically walking around. Just imagine the agonizing psychological torture of walking past MJ in that coffee shop every single day, knowing she would have died for you. But to her, you're just a nameless stranger asking for a coffee. That isn't just heartbreak, that is waking psychological torture.
Section 4. The Danger of Hopelessness.
Now, this profound void changes Spider-Man's narrative in ways that his worst villains never could. Take a look at his shifting motivations. Normally, Peter fights through the pain because he has something deeply personal worth protecting. But his present state? Stripped of his identity, he has absolutely nothing left to protect.
And this is a terrifying place for a hero to operate from. When people lose everything, they often stop protecting themselves. Without that love and connection, they subconsciously start to believe their own life has less value. It creates this incredibly dangerous state of hopelessness. Moving forward, Peter's greatest enemy isn't some alien plotting world domination. It's his own utter lack of self-preservation. We actually got a terrifying glimpse of this all-consuming darkness right after Aunt May died. Grief completely overwhelmed the core moral values that defined him. He was totally ready to execute the Green Goblin. And not because Peter is evil, but because his grief blinded him to his own humanity. If Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man hadn't stepped in, Peter would have crossed a line he could never erase. But now, the people who kept him grounded don't even remember him. Who's left to pull him back from the edge?
To make matters infinitely worse, he's burdened by immense, crushing survivor's guilt. This is a hidden, quiet, psychological struggle of replaying endless questions, constantly searching the corners of his mind for impossible ways to change the past. His trauma has essentially trapped him inside alternate versions of reality where maybe, just maybe, he could have fixed things.
He is endlessly haunted by these agonizing questions. If I had acted sooner, would Tony still be alive? Would Aunt May still be alive? Would everyone I love still be safe? These questions don't just fade. They replay on a continuous loop, where every past mistake is a permanent scar and every single memory is damning evidence against himself.
It creates this profoundly tragic paradox. It really is a new day for everyone else in New York City. The world moves forward. But Peter? He's trapped living in yesterday, while everyone else wakes up tomorrow. He's the only soul on the planet carrying the colossal weight of every sacrifice and goodbye, totally alone.
Section 5. Rebuilding Peter Parker.
But look, this explainer isn't just about despair. We have to pivot toward hope, because the upcoming Brand New Day narrative isn't about defeating the multiverse. It's a deeply intimate story of a young man undertaking 3 agonizing steps to rebuild an identity from scratch. First, rejecting the idea that his suffering defines him. Second, actively choosing hope despite having every logical reason to give up. And third, the hardest step of all, learning to believe that Peter Parker actually deserves happiness.
That is the absolute cruelest lesson of trauma. It tries to convince you that your suffering is your entire identity. But healing doesn't start when life magically gets easy. It begins when someone makes the incredibly difficult, defiant choice to hope anyway.
Because honestly, anyone can put on a suit and wear the mask. But as Peter discovers who he truly is when nobody in the world remembers he exists, we're left with one vital question. In this brand new day, will Peter Parker conquer the strangers staring back at him in the mirror? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning what's beneath the surface.